Smaug is a fictional character and the primary antagonist in J.R.R.Tolkien's 1937 novel The Hobbit. He is a powerful, fearsome dragon who invaded the dwarf kingdom of Erebor 150 years prior to the events described in the novel. A group of 13 dwarves mounted a quest to take the kingdom back, aided by the wizard Gandalf and the hobbit Bilbo Baggins. Smaug is described as a most specially greedy, strong and wicked worm. Story in Appendix A, Section 3, of The Return of the King. Dragons are stated to reside in the withered heath beyond the Grey Mountains. Smaug is described as the greatest of the dragons of his day, and was already centuries old at the time he was first recorded. Having heard rumors of the great wealth of the dwarf kingdom of Erebor, he arose and without warning came against King Thror and descended on the mountain in flames. Quote, after driving the dwarves out of the stronghold, Smaug occupied the interior of the mountain for the next 150 years, guarding a vast hoard of treasure. The Quest of Erebor, a chapter of Unfinished Tales, recounts how Gandalf realized that Smaug could pose a serious threat if used by Sauron. He therefore agreed to assist a party of dwarves, led by Thror's grandson Thorin Oakenshield, who set out to recapture the mountain and kill the dragon. Assuming that Smaug would not recognize the scent of a hobbit, Gandalf also recruits Bilbo Baggins to join the quest, which is the subject of The Hobbit. Upon reaching Erebor, the dwarves sent Bilbo into Smaug's lair to retrieve the Arkenstone, the jeweled emblem of Thror's kingdom. Smaug sensed Bilbo's presence immediately, even though Bilbo had rendered himself invisible with the One Ring, and accused the hobbit of trying to steal from him. Centuries spent sleeping atop his gold hoard had caused golden gemstones to become embedded in the skin of Smaug's underside, augmenting the already impenetrable scales that covered most of his body. Bilbo detected a small bare patch in Smaug's armor, however, and imparted the information to a thrush to give to Bard the bowman, leader of Lake Town. Moments later, Bilbo escaped with the Arkenstone as Smaug flew out of his lair to attack Lake Town. The thrush arrived in time to tell Bard of Smaug's weakness, and Bard fired a black arrow into Smaug's wound, killing him. Concept and creation. Tolkien created numerous pencil sketches and 2 pieces of more detailed artwork portraying Smaug. The latter were a detailed ink and watercolor labeled Conversation with Smaug and a rough-colored pencil and ink sketch entitled Death of Smaug. While neither of these appeared in the original printing of The Hobbit due to cost constraints, both have been included in subsequent editions, and Conversation with Smaug has been used extensively. Death of Smaug was used for the cover of an early UK paperback edition of The Hobbit. From 1925 to 1945, Tolkien was a professor of Anglo-Saxon at Oxford University, and a prominent critic of and expert on Beowulf, on which he gave a lecture at the British Academy in 1936, and which he described as one of his most valued sources for The Hobbit. Many of Smaug's attributes and behavior in The Hobbit derive directly from the unnamed Old Knight Scather in Beowulf. Great-aged, winged, fiery, and reptilian form, a stolen barrow within which he lies on his hoard, disturbance by a theft, and violent airborne revenge on the lands all about. Smaug was intimately familiar with every last item within his hoard, and instantly noticed the theft of a relatively inconsequential cup by Bilbo Baggins. Tolkien writes that Smaug's rage was the kind which is only seen when rich folk that have more than they can enjoy lose something they have long had but never before used or wanted. Quote, This theft of a cup, Smaug's knowledge of every item in the hoard, and the dragon's ensuing rampage, all echo the story of Beowulf. Tolkien may also have been inspired by the talking dragon Fafnir of the Volsunga saga. Tolkien noted that the dragon bears as name a pseudonym, the past tense of the primitive Germanic verb smaugen, to squeeze through a hole, a low philological jest. Smaug was depicted by Tolkien as an intelligent being capable of speech, easily pleased by flattery and fascinated by Bilbo's description of himself in riddles. This is also done in later film adaptations such as The Hobbit: The Desolation of Smaug. He is described as having quite an overwhelming personality, and every time his eyes flash across Bilbo's invisible form, he feels almost compelled to tell him the truth about himself because of the hypnotic power within. Portrayal in adaptations. The Hobbit. In the 1977 animated version of The Hobbit, Smaug was voiced by Richard Boone. In general, Smaug's design in the animated version is consistent with Tolkien's description, save for his face, for rather than the traditional reptilian look associated with dragons, Smaug's face in the animated version has distinctly cat-like features including fur, enlarged ears, and canine teeth. His hypnotic speech is absent, but his acute eyesight is portrayed by high beam-like lights projected from his eyes. The Hobbit. On June 16, 2011, it was announced that Smaug would be voiced and interpreted with performance capture by Benedict Cumberbatch in Peter Jackson's three-part adaptation of The Hobbit, wherein Smaug is presented with a long head, red golden scales, and piercing yellow-red eyes. The dragon speaks with received pronunciation with an underlying growl. Cumberbatch's vocal performance was vocoded using alligator growls. Smaug's design was created with keyframe animation, in addition to Cumberbatch's motion capture performance. Weta Digital employed its proprietary Disu software, which was honored in 2013 with a Scientific and Engineering Award from the Academy of Motion Picture Arts and Sciences to make the dragon as realistic as possible. In addition, Weta Digital supervisor J.R.R.Tolkien said in an interview for USA Today that they used classic European and Asian dragons as inspirations to create Smaug. In the first film, The Hobbit: An Unexpected Journey, the audience sees only his legs, wings, and tail, and his arm, which is showcased in the final scene of the film. Smaug is a topic of discussion among the White Council as Gandalf's reason to support Thorin Oakenshield's quest. Smaug appears as the titular primary antagonist in the second film, The Hobbit: The Desolation of Smaug. The first film portrayed him as a four-legged dragon with wings on his back. The design in the second film depicted Smaug with wings on his arms, like a bat. In an interview with J.R.R.Tolkien, Smaug's design was changed to this form after the crew saw how Benedict Cumberbatch performed Smaug while moving around on all four limbs. The weak spot shown in Smaug's armor is the result of one of his scales breaking off during his attack on Dale. He makes veiled references to the One Ring and There Coming Darkness, which tie into the film's secondary plot concerning the resurgence of Sauron. Smaug battles Thorin's small group of dwarves when they come to Bilbo's aid, before flying off to Lake Town. In The Hobbit: The Battle of the Five Armies, Smaug attacks Lake Town. He is killed by Bard with an elongated iron arrow and his body falls on the boat carrying the fleeing master of Lake Town. It is later revealed that Smaug's attack on Erebor was all part of Sauron's design. Smaug was considered one of the highlights of the second film of the series, with several critics hailing him as cinema's greatest dragon. Critics also praised the visual effects company Weta Digital and Cumberbatch's vocal and motion capture performance for giving Smaug a fully realized personality. Others in the 1977 J.R.R. Tolkien calendar, the brothers Hildebrandt depicted Smaug with bright red scales scales and large bat-like wings. In the 2003 video game released, Smaug was voiced by James Horan. In popular culture, in 2011, Smaug made his first appearance on the fictional 15, the Forbes list of the 15 richest fictional characters. That year, he was ranked number 7 with an estimated net worth of $8.6 billion, whereas Scrooge McDuck was first with $44 billion. In 2012, the magazine did a more in-depth analysis on Smaug's wealth and concluded with a conservative estimate was $61 billion, which placed him comfortably atop the list. Michael Noack, the author of this article, limited his estimate in order to keep Smaug's net value in line with living factual characters, notably Bill Gates and Carlos Slim. The estimates are tied directly to Smaug's size and the assumption that he lies directly on the largest part of his hoard. A more literal reading of Tolkien's text and comparison to historical instead of living factual persons would result in a much higher estimate, as much as $870 billion, according to the article. In the 2013 edition of the Forbes Fictional 15, Smaug placed second on the list with a net worth of an estimated $54.1 billion, falling behind Scrooge McDuck, who was estimated to have a net worth of $65.4 billion. The CGI simulation of Smaug used in Peter Jackson's films, voiced by Benedict Cumberbatch, made a guest appearance on the satire show The Colbert Report on December 11, 2014 to promote The Hobbit: The Battle of the Five Armies. During the interview, Smaug favored the United States returning to the gold standard, supported Stand Your Ground laws, and endorsed Rand Paul to run for President of the United States in 2016 before going on a rampage after Colbert made light of a scene from the movies. Smaug later made a non-speaking cameo in the series' final episode, joining the series' other previous guests in a rendition of We'll Meet Again. In science. In 2011, scientists in the United States and South Africa named a genus of southern African girdled lizards, Smaug, after the character. The lizards were so named after the fictional dragon due to being similarly armored, dwelling underground, and native to Tolkien's birthplace. In 2015, a new species of shield bug was named after Smaug, Planwa Smaug, because of its size and its status, sleeping in the researchers' collections for about 60 years until it was discovered.